Good afternoon. Welcome to the third and the last day of the Queen Sirikit Museum of Textile and Thammasat University's virtual symposium. Today's subject is new ways of teaching, learning, and presenting textiles and dress in long-distance formats. The three presenters are Dr. Wutigrai Siripon, Faculty of Fine and Applied Arts, Thammasat University, Bangkok, Thailand. Then Ms. Alisa Sai Savetvari, Curator at the Queen Sirikit Museum of Textiles in Bangkok, and Dr. Shao Chu Wu from the National Palace Museum in Taipei, Taiwan. The first speaker today is Dr. Wutigrai Siripon of Thammasat University, who will speak about virtual touch, the experience of teaching textile and design online. Learning textile design and craft in higher education in person has the advantage of physical communications. This process has been disrupted due to COVID-19, and there are concerns about the quality of teaching that virtual learning can provide. Let us welcome Dr. Wutigrai Siripon, who will discuss this subject.
Hi, my name is Wutigrai Siripon. I am a lecturer in textile design at Thammasat University in Thailand. Today, I am presenting on the topic Virtual Touch, Reflection on the Experience of Teaching Textiles and Design Online. And the contents of this presentation will include, first, the responses to COVID-19 pandemic, the actions that our university did take place, and also our faculty and the program. Follow that will be the situations and activities that happened in the class that I led, that included textile design, both for Thai students and international students. The second one will be reflection on teaching textiles and design online. So what's the thought that I came up with? And then the last will be suggestions on what as textile lecturer could do in the future. So in conventional classes that happened on day-to-day basis before COVID-19 was that we meet face-to-face, we discuss, we teach, and we talk to each other in small classroom where the students and tutor have direct interactions. And as tutors, we would go in their studios, workshops, and take the materials and teach them how to do certain things, for example, weaving. Also, we had field trips that we took students to different locations in the country to learn about textile from professional practitioners. So that requires a lot of direct interaction between the giver, the tutor, and the other professionals to the students, and vice versa. And then, as you might be aware of, the COVID-19 that forced the university to close and everything moved online. And we had 1 week for preparation. So we closed for a week and then we opened again when everything was conducted online. Among the confusions and all the uncertainties, we did a survey for our students in the faculty. So we had 3 programs in fashion textiles, drama, and industrial craft. So we did the survey, and the interesting things were that you can see on the top right. So the question was, where will you be studying from? And most of the students, the majority of students would be studying from home, and a smaller quantity would be from the dormitories, because our campus is in the suburb, and because of the travel restriction, it was very difficult for students who was staying in the dormitory to go back home. And the lower right, the question was, do you have an appropriate device, laptop or mobile phone? 99% of the students had appropriate devices, but there was a very small percentages that didn't have the device. So the tutor was notified and work with the student how we could solve the problem. In a more detailed in relating to the practical classes, on the top left, do you have sufficient equipment? Although the majority had equipment, this very much related to students in fashion and textiles and industrial craft design program, but quite a large proportion didn't have the tools and the equipment. The pandemic occurred mid-term. We operated on 16 weeks basis, and after 8 weeks, the pandemic appeared and we had to close. So almost all the class was in the middle of operation. So this was quite a problem. On the lower left, it asks, at what level do you think you are ready for online learning? The majority was kind of, on the middle or above middle level of readiness. That was before the online class actually happened. So that was something that we had to work with to deal with the problem. And then on the right, the problem that you anticipated for the students. So 70, no, so my apology, 67% didn't have tools for practical classes. So it's saying online learning was not really appropriate for practical classes, and so on. You can see the details on the screen. So with this situation in mind, we had a chat group or multiple chat groups for different classes as a main way of communication when we were not on the class, when we were not on online at the same time. So we used this for communication and for submitting the works that we could come and check later and give the easy access. And everyone in Thailand, not everyone, but a lot of people, almost everyone in Thailand who has mobile phone has Line application. And this is used also in regular classes. Although not in COVID-19, we also use Line application for notification. So in this, before the online class actually happened, my class, which was the constructed textile class for first year, it was in the middle of weaving practice. So I shot this video with the help of my colleague to show the students how to weave on frame loom with tapestry techniques. And I had to do this with mobile phone and sent them into the Line chat group and hoped that the students could do it. And the result was rather pleasing. The students could repeat or followed the subject that I gave to them. Although there is a limited resource for the students to access, because with the lockdown happened, to be able, it was not easy to go to buy yarns, and the postal service was really delayed. So it was really difficult for students to access the materials. However, they could do work with quality, and that had a lot to do with the class that we had before the lockdown. However, I find that it was difficult to encourage students to explore other things, because the ways of communication was limited to online, and it was quite difficult to point to encourage them in the progress that they are making. So the results are really similar. That was because I showed them step by step how to do certain things, and they followed that really strictly. Although that was not my intention to ask them to follow me strictly, they did. So the idea of encouraging creativity and experimentation was quite limited at this point. And these are the works that they did. I asked them to do tapestry weave, and I asked them to do color scheme and make a kind of clutch bag from the weave that they did. So they submitted all the sketches and all the works only through images in the group line, and we discussed that in the online class that we manage on the normal schedule, the normal timetable, but everything was online. And these are sketches that they did submit to me online. So we use a combination of Microsoft Teams and Line chat group. So the student would send the images to Line chat, and I would open that, share the screen, open that on the computer so they could see, and we can talk about that. So halfway through, I did another survey, asked them how they thought about the online classes, and that also included the history of textile class, which was very much theory-based. So it was a lot of me talking and ask them their opinions from time to time. So, from the scale, on the left would be 1, and on the right would be 5. So the 1 would be the least, and the 5 would be the most. So quality of connection, it was kind of okay. Continuation in the class, that meant if the class was interrupted much, so it was kind of okay, acceptable level. I asked how appropriate is online teaching, and it was kind of okay average. And interaction between tutors and students, it was kind of mixed. So it was kind of okay, but on a good side. And other comments were kind of the voice that kind of was interrupted and disappeared from time to time. So I solved this by pre-recording, but that also had problem with downloading because the file would be very big. And if they watch the video online, that also had a problem. And everything happened at the same time, so it was a bit difficult to deal with. So at the end, I uploaded the presentation to students, and I presented live. And if there was a video, I asked them to look at the video that was posted online that they might have downloaded on their computer, so they could watch the video. So video streaming, if I had a video on PowerPoint and stream that online live, it had quite a lot of problems. So they downloaded and watched that from their computer. So that makes it easier, but I have to wait for most of the students to finish that and make a summary of that video presentation. So these are the works, the final works from the constructed textile class for first year. So I found that the students put more emphasis on this presentation. They gave an energy in that, although limitations really appeared. Some students were at home, some of them were at the dormitory in the campus. So they tried, I saw this and I could see that they really tried to make it happen and to present their ideas. Some of them had done it in a more professional way, some of them more in the improvised methods. But all of them, from my experience from this class, I find that if the student had to present face to face, they wouldn't put as much efforts into presentation. They would come and talk to me and present what they had. They might have a mood board, but to present it in a more visual way and to make one image that carries most of the message, it didn't really happen in the normal class. So this was rather impressive. And this is a setting up for online teaching. It's a lot of improvisation, stacking boxes and managing technological equipment, which was not really my expertise. So there was a lot of problems and I found that the simplest was the best. And it worked at the end, but it was a lot of improvisation and working on that. There was another class that just finished this month. It was for surface materials, elective course for the Faculty of Arts, Design and Architecture for interior design program at MEF University in Turkey. So this was more or less like textile foundation for interior design students. And I did ask them to do weaving and other practical activities, and they had to do it in their country. So there was no material exchange between the countries, Thailand and Turkey at all. So I had to find a way to make it accessible for most of the students. So the loom would be made of cardboard and the yarns would be anything that they could find. So I asked them to do weaving and pleating, smocking, and designing patterns for the print for their interior design projects. So they could actually do it. I mean, these students was different from the group of students that I presented earlier. That was students that I taught face-to-face before. So I taught them already for 8 weeks, and then they had to do the works at home. But these students, it was totally online. So all the looms making, I had the link for the website that showed them how to do cardboard loom, and everything, every process happened online. And they actually could do it with quality. They actually try different tapestry techniques. And I also asked them to do 3D textile techniques like plating and smocking, and I showed them the instruction and I explained that online, and they actually could do it. And although I hoped that they would be able to do it, I was still surprised and impressed by the quality of the work that these students who had no prior experience, most of them didn't have any experience in textile and weaving before, and they could actually do work with quality, a certain quality that was really impressive. And then they applied that to their interior design projects. I asked them to do work weaving and designing patterns. Some of them did really, really good quality weaving, very, very neat in terms of the selvage, in terms of the evenness of the beating of the weft and the ideas that they explored. It was really, really good quality. And I felt that they enjoyed this in the process. So after these online classes happened, there are other classes that I taught online, but these are very clear examples and quite a good two cases that could make a good case for this presentation. I found that, from the basic level and move to advanced level, the basic level, they actually could do it. It was absolutely possible to do it online with certain quality. Although theory could be, on the theory side, in terms of teaching textile theory, it would be more successful to teach online, while practical classes, it had more obstacle because of the interaction that couldn't appear, couldn't happen directly, and there was limitation on the access. You had to be at the same time, and the time the slot was limited. While if you do it face to face, you could meet the student would come to the workshop all the time. You could do it better. So what about the more advanced level? Could we do it? So my question is, if you need to learn textile craft and design remotely and hope that students can reach an advanced level, what kind of approach we need to achieve that? So I know that there are other classes that teach weaving or textile online before, but from my experience, I would suggest that if we need to move this forward, and if we need a more advanced level of textiles, that in idea would be able to more or less replace or be a good alternative for teaching face-to-face in a more conventional class. If you want to do online, quality online teaching, what we might to do. I think we would need a different set of expectations. So we might need to think about a certain level of quality of making. To me, I wouldn't hope to get the same quality of making, nice selvage, even beating the consistency of the warp and weft and so on, and the firmness of the cloth. I would give a compromise to that. I wouldn't expect the students to get or to give the same level of quality of making. And there is this culturally specific practices that if you think about teaching, for example, weaving, in a country, you would find different kind of tools that you need different approaches for working with that tools, and you need a different method to operate weaving. So if you work remotely, if the student is in another country or is in another location that they cannot access the same kind of tools, there is this cultural practice that you would do because it's easy to access certain tools, and there is a kind of way that you deal with that tools, so that if it's in conventional class, you can you can emphasize that very easily. While if you do it remotely, that element will be really will be of less importance. The second one will be a different set of requirements. So, physical presence of humans and materials at the same time will be diminished. You cannot have, in the same space to have the materials and human at the same time. The bodily movement, which is very important for learning textile, you have to learn and you have to know how to move your hand, how to flip the yarn, how to hold the shuttle, for example, and how to control your body. And when you do it online, you can see only one, two dimensions of the other person. You can see just these flat screens. So to reinforce that bodily movement to in a conventional sense, to increase efficiency in the making, that will be a limitation. Tactility and touch, you cannot touch what you see on the screen, so that will be the requirement that will not be as important as conventional class. Also, we might need a different pedagogical approach, different methods of knowledge transfer. We might need to think about a different curriculum, a different approach that we would give the idea of textile and construction to the students. If it's face-to-face, there are tools that we can explore, that we can exploit. But when it's online, the access is a little bit different. So we have to think about the ways that we can transfer knowledge. So for example, if it's physical, if it's bodily, that will be impossible for online teaching. And the relationship between teacher and learners will be different. In the conventional class, you would hold their hand, you would show them, they will see you in three-dimensional views, and the relationship will be different. You would have this screen and the connections between you and the students. And the results, the design results will be different. I think the final result, the visuals, will be more important than the process and the physicality and the materiality of textiles. Textiles is about touch, it's about texture, it's about handling, and when those qualities will be of less importance than the visuals, because if you do it online, you can present it on screen as images or moving image videos. So then the visuals will be more important than the touch. So this sounds like compromise, but what do we have instead? So we have the inclusiveness. Students in different areas can access this. We have more accessibility. Students can reach the class in the times that they find convenient, and it becomes less restricted and less culturally specific. So as I said about pedagogical approach, we might need to think about tools and methods that are universal for students in different areas with different materials access and different resources. I think if it's compromised in the first place, but I find that although it's a compromise, we get other things that actual physical face-to-face learning cannot give. And I think this, although it is there are a lot of limitations, this can be a future for teaching. It might not be in the same kind of quality or in the same kind of results that we are familiar with, but that we need a different expectations, we need different requirements, we need different approach, and that can lead us to a totally new or substantially new approach to teaching textile and design online. And this is very exciting, but we need to change a lot. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much. And if there is any question, you can email me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Siripon. The next speaker is Ms. Alyssa Sai Savetvari, curator at the Queen Sirikit Museum of Textile, who will speak about creating and sharing textile collections and information in the online platform. Due to the pandemic, when physical communications have been limited and in many cases impossible, the museum has created material available to the public, such as conferences, video presentation, and presenting museum exhibitions and online articles written by museum curators. Ms. Sai-Savetvari will compare the effectiveness of this year's work to that of last year. Ms. Alyssa Savetvari.
My name is Alyssa Sai-Savetvari. I'm a curator at the Queen Sirikit Museum of Textiles, and it is my pleasure to be part of this conference. My presentation, Creating and Sharing Textiles Collection and Information in the Online Platform, will be focusing on our online programs and activities that offer ways for our audiences to remotely access and enjoy textiles collection and museum exhibition during the COVID-19 situation. Firstly, I would like to begin the presentation with the story of the Support Foundation. In 1970, Her Majesty Queen Sirikit, the Queen Mother, traveled with His Majesty King Bhumibol Adulyadej the Great to visit flood victims in Nawat District, Nakhon Phanom Province. Among those sitting waiting to welcome their majesties were village women wearing hand-woven silk ikat or matmi in Thai, traditional skirts. The unique beauty and indicate the legacy of these traditional garments inspired the Queen Mother to create jobs for local villagers, which sustainably helped solve poverty in line with the King's guidance. On 21st July 1976, Her Majesty established the Foundation for the Promotion of the Supplementary Occupations and Related Techniques of Her Majesty Queen Sirikit of Thailand, or the Support Foundation for short. The purpose of this foundation is to help people earn additional income from the local handicrafts. This, in turn, has helped preserve the nation's precious cultural heritage for future generations. The Support Foundation has provided Thai weavers with training, encouragement, needed materials, and a ready market. In 2003, Her Majesty Queen Sirikit, the Queen Mother, requested permission to use the then vacant building underground of the Grand Palace to house a new Museum of Textiles. The 1870 Rasadakon Pipat building was graciously granted for this purpose by His Majesty King Bhumibol Adulyadej the Great. The museum's mission is to collect, display, preserve, and serve as a center for all who wish to learn about textiles, past and present, from Southeast Asia, South Asia, and East Asia, with a special emphasis on the textiles of and related to the royal court and Her Majesty Queen Sirikit, the Queen Mother. Since we officially opened to the public in 2012, the museum has organized dozens of exhibitions and projects. In 2019, the museum received more than 356,584 visitors. Currently, we have 2 on-site exhibitions, The Power of Love, an exhibition to celebrate Her Majesty Queen Sirikit, the Queen Mother's 87th birthday on 12 August 2019, and honors Her Majesty's work and dedication in various fields since her royal appointment as Queen in 1950. And a royal treasure, the Javanese batik collection of King Chulalongkorn of Siam, an exhibition dedicated to showcasing this collection and telling the story of His Majesty King Chulalongkorn's 3 trips to Java and his fascination with batik. It presents exceptional examples of batik from His Majesty's collection, which have never been publicly displayed. The museum also has a fully equipped textile conservation laboratory and storage that is fully climate controlled to international standards. The establishment of the Queen Sirikit Museum of Textiles embodies Her Majesty's efforts to assure the preservation of Thailand's textile arts for future generations. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Queen Sirikit Museum of Textiles had been temporarily closed for almost 4 months, from March 22nd to June 7th. During this period, we used our social media channels to communicate with our audiences, and they could visit Google Arts and Culture to explore our exhibitions and collection online. But in order to provide museums experience and useful information about textiles and costume for our remote visitors, we started to create new online content since April, which are accessible with our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Collector's Pick is the online program that textile and costume researchers, professors, collectors, and photographers were invited to present their selected textile pieces and the story of their collection. On June 15, we launched our first episode of Curator's Corner. It is a video series that curators of the Queen Sirikit Museum of Textiles tell the interesting stories of the objects or in-depth information from the exhibition. QSMT Craft Room is a series of video tutorials on basic stitches and techniques for hand sewing. How to make your own face masks, or how to make a bottle holder for alcohol spray or alcohol gel. We also participated in an international virtual conference. We received an invitation from the China National Silk Museum in Hangzhou, China, to present historical objects from the museum collections during Silk Road Week. So we created 2 video presentations as part of this event. The first one is an introduction to the Power of Love exhibition. And the second one is the story of Prawa, a shoulder cloth of elaborately patterned silk brocade, traditionally with a deep red ground. It is woven and worn by women of the Puthai community. In November, Mr. Witawat Getmai, our curator, and Ms. Piyanan Pechara-Buranin, a museum editor, participated in the 7th edition of Costume Colloquium. This virtual conference entitled Fashion and Dress in Space and Place. They gave a video presentation titled A Glance at the Evolution of Thailand's Hill Tribe Textiles, Traditional Karen and Hmong Clothing, which is an ongoing research for our upcoming exhibition on the Hill Tribe Textiles in Thailand. For distance learning, we gave a presentation on the history of Thai silk and the Support Foundation to the University of New South Wales Business School students. And in October, Ms. Satarat Matdin, one of our curators, gave a virtual tour of a Royal Treasure exhibition via Zoom application for a group from Indonesian Heritage Society. These online activities immensely affect the number of posts reached from our Facebook page, comparing to last year in the same period of time, from June to November. The number of people who saw our posts increased more than 60%. In conclusion, while we are still working on our on-site projects in response to our museum's mission as a place to collect, display, preserve, and serve as a center for all who wish to learn about textiles, but at the same time, we will proceed with our digital contents to provide useful resources for our remote visitors. Thank you, Queen Sirikit Museum of Textiles and the Faculty of Fine and Applied Art, Thammasat University, for organizing this conference, and thank you all for your participation. Please visit our website, Facebook page, and Instagram for more information about our exhibitions and activities. Thank you very much. ขอบคุณค่ะ
Ms. Alisa Saisavetvari. The next speaker is Dr. Xiao Jun Wu, Associate Research Fellow and Chief of IT Section in National Palace Museum in Taipei, who will speak about digital education promotion through STEAM, which is STEAM, and stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Math for elementary and secondary education. Let us welcome Dr. Xiao Jun Wu.
Hello everyone, I'm Xiao Jun Wu from the Department of Education, Exhibition and Information Service in National Palace Museum in Taipei. Today, I would like to share with you how the National Palace Museum carries out digital education activity during the epidemic. I'm going to break it down into several parts. My introduction has two parts. The first part is about the challenges faced by National Palace Museum in promoting digital art education activity during the epidemic, including the problems faced by the museum education under the epidemic, some characteristics of museum education activity, and the digital education resources of National Palace Museum. In the second part, I would like to introduce the strategy of integration of online and offline digital education activities and the education planning adopted by National Palace Museum during the epidemics, and take National Palace Museum's STEAM education activity as an example to illustrate how National Palace Museum promotes digital education activity at both offline and online. Next, I would like to introduce the challenges that the National Palace Museum faced in promoting digital education activity during the epidemic. First, we must understand the museums and the primary and the secondary schools have a long-standing partnership, which used to be called Museum-School Partnership, and is an important part of museum education. However, under the impact of epidemic, how museums cooperate with primary and secondary schools to promote music education is a question worth thinking about by museums. It is clear that the museum's education activity would change dramatically in the wake of the epidemic. After careful observation and study, we believe that under the impact of epidemic, education will have a fundamental change in future, especially the activity that needs face-to-face contact that are often promoted by traditional museums, and the activities that require many people participate in the same time, such as field petty or hands-on activity, will face great challenges. MoMA in the United States of America, for example, has ended its contracts with all educators in a sign of how hard the epidemic has hit museum education. The impact of digital technology on museum education will be even more significant during the epidemic, and the museum education will surely pay more attention to the online application in the future. In the future, museum education may develop in 4 different directions. First, online learning of video and audio like MOOCs will be more popular. 2. Museum will encourage primary and secondary school to use online resources of museums or free videos provided by museums, such as YouTubes of museums. 3. Museum will conduct education promotion activity with school or community through visual communication. 4. Under the surveillance of epidemic situation, the education activity of museum will be combined with some physical activities through online activity, forming the new normal of museum education. The museum has a long-term partnership with primary and secondary school. As museums continue to digitalize their collection and the primary and secondary school gradually promote digital learning effectively, there is a consensus between museums and the primary and secondary school on the application of digital technology in learning activities. In fact, the cooperation between museums and the primary and the secondary school in the application of digital learning can effectively improve by the learning quality of primary and secondary school students. Therefore, museums have been providing digital resources for primary and secondary school teaching activity for a long time. In the early days, primary and secondary school used the digital resource of a museum in 2 ways. First way, teachers assign students to search the digital resources of museums on the internet in the form of homework or learning activity. The second way, teachers refer to the museum's website or database when preparing lessons. Later, with the popularization of the mobile technology, when teachers use a mobile device such as a mobile phone or tablets to teaching in the classroom, they use the digital resources of a museum more and more often. Because of the increasing dependence of primary and secondary school on the digital resources of a museum, many museums have successfully developed a variety of digital resources that can be used for learning. National Past Museum has also been developing digital content for decades. We believe that the main digital content of the National Past Museum can be roughly divided into 4 types. The visual digital learning resources such as 4K or 8K video, database, and ebooks. The digital learning system, immersive content of VR or AR, some operational digital learning resources such as 3D model. This is a database that National Past Museum has been building since the early days of digitalization. It can be used by all primary and secondary schools in Taiwan. This screen is the entrance to the National Past Museum Heritage Database, which is free for primary and secondary school to use in teaching and lesson preparation. Later, National Past Museum has developed teaching plans related to museum cultural collection and cooperated with primary and secondary teachers to develop a teaching demonstration video and apply the museum collection in teaching, and design learning sheets to be downloaded for free by primary and secondary school. National Past Museum integrated the video and audio resources, lesson plans, learning demonstration videos, and other resources that many primary and secondary school teachers can use on a website. The cloud technology on the website enable the capacity and the speed to meet the needs of teachers. In addition to downloadable teaching plans, demo videos, learning sheets, the website also offers online. Teachers can sign up for a variety of online courses for free. These courses are designed based on the theme of National Past Museum collection. In addition, National Past Museum has also sending teaching teams to primary and secondary school in the rural area for on-site teaching activity and games on cultural relics, independent with VR, AR, and other equipment. It is also a typical museum outreach event that takes extend use for digital resources. After introducing the digital resources of National Past Museum, the online teaching platform established by National Past Museum and how to use digital resources to carry out promotion activity in primary and secondary school. I would like to introduce how National Past Museum promotes online and offline education activities during the epidemic, which are many STEAM activities. National Past Museum, like other museums around the world, is also facing the impact of the epidemic. The epidemic situation posed great challenge to museum education. Due to better control of epidemic in Taiwan, many museums still receive service requests from primary and secondary school wishing to send museum staff to the school to carry out promotion activity. However, some primary and secondary schools are more cautious and do not want National Past Museum to send educator to school. Therefore, we judge that the future education activity of the museum should be a combination of online and offline forms, and we believe that they will develop in 4 directions. First, many schools adopt online education after the outbreak of the epidemic, so museums must be cooperative with the transformation. Second, some schools still believe in the need of a physical activity. Third, based on these facts, museums in Taiwan need to have both physical and online activity when promoting educational activity in the future. Fourth, the same museum activity needs to have both an online and a physical version. Next, I would like to introduce how National Past Museum promotes STEAM education activity during the epidemic. First, I will briefly explain the nature of STEAM activity and why STEAM is a good fit for museum education. STEAM refers to science, technology, engineering, art, and math. It emphasizes systematic think, interdisciplinary knowledge, and hands-on problem solving. STEAM usually includes maker education, coding education for children and teenagers, and so on, all of which are important components of STEAM education. National Past Museum is well suited an art museum to promote STEAM education. STEAM education has many advantages in art education. For example, it can make children have multi-sensory contact, get familiar with the structure of collection for a long time, deconstruct collection, experience the making, and inspire creativity through the hands-on activity. Therefore, in the past 2 or 3 years, National Past Museum has begun to study maker education and how STEAM can be applied in the education activity of the National Past Museum. We began to try to apply programming education, coding education, 3D printing, developed addition and other tools to the education activity for museum. At the same time, we continued to open the website database and the AR/VR resources related to collection for primary and secondary school teachers. We designed the series of STEAM teaching plans, which are based on the collection of National Past Museum, combined with 3D printing, children's coding education, laser cutting, and other technology. In the processes of 3D printing and coding, teachers and the students in the primary and the secondary school can not only learn IT technology but also be more familiar with National Past Museum's collection and more understand the appearance and the structure of the collection and think about how to make creative change for the other purpose. On the presentation screen, we can see the achievement of 3D printing or laser cutting derived from the various National Past Museum's collection. Next, I will introduce a few typical National Past Museum's STEAM teaching plans. The presentation screen shows a 3D printed vest. National Past Museum have a collection of vests from the Qianlong area. We first conduct 3D modeling of the vest and then design the teaching plan to guide the children to use the 3D printer, 3D modeling software, USB power supply, and the LED switch, so that the ancient proceeding can be turned into a modern desk lamp. Another example is the ship-shaped sculpture on the screen. Similarly, we first conduct 3D scanning of this sculpture and then guided the children to install motors on the ship-shaped sculpture and design decorations with 3D printing so that the student can give this ship-shaped sculpture the ability to move. Here is another example. we have transformed an ancient painting in digital National Past Museum. After picture processing, we use laser cutting the painting lines of this riverbank benzer, combined with the base of LED lamp. We made it into a lamp with style of ancient painting. We have been several examples of STEAM teaching plan from National Past Museum. In the past 2 years, we have loaded the STEAM teaching plans related to National Past Museum collection described above on a decided track and the resources such as the 3D printer, laser cutter, and the instruction manual. This truck was driven to the primary and secondary school in every county and city in Taiwan for demonstrating the teaching. The main purpose is not only to promote National Past Museum's STEAM teaching plan, but also that teachers and students can understand how National Past Museum's collections are used in STEAM teaching, but also to stop the problem of insufficient resources in 3D printing and coding education for children in rural primary and secondary school. On average, we can travel to up to 80 primary and secondary school per year. What we see on the screen is our truck loaded with our STEAM teaching plan and the 3D printer and other equipment to promote in various primary and secondary school. We provide demonstrating teaching directly to students. In addition to loading STEAM teaching plans and the various teaching equipment with our truck, we also leave the teaching plan documents, spare parts, free software, sampling, and consumable needs for promoting STEAM education, so the teacher can continue to promote STEAM education after the truck leaves the school. Also, the COVID-19 epidemic in Taiwan has been under control. Some primary and secondary schools still do not want their students to have too much contact with museum educators. Therefore, educational promotion activity of the museum are still limited, and the STEAM education activities promoted through the trucks to primary and secondary school mentioned above are also limited. Therefore, after the outbreak of the epidemic, we started thinking about how we could work with primary and secondary school at a distance to continue to promote our STEAM education activity. We thought we could use Microsoft Teams as a primary video teaching tool and OB Studio as the editing tool for the course content. Our steps are as follows. Before the activity starts, we first communicated with the teacher of school by telephone or video and agreed on the allocation, equipment time, and the software of video teaching, and then teaching students to make National Past Museum's STEAM teaching plan by visual communication at the agreed time. After students finish the STEAM teaching plan, they will send the work finished through 3D printing or coding design back to National Past Museum. National Past Museum's educator will mark or make comments and tell some comments to the student. The work and the comments may be sent to the school and returned to the students by the teacher. As you can see on the screen, this is the National Past Museum's STEAM education via video link in primary and secondary school. You can see how we have used Microsoft Teams as the primary tool for content editing in laptop, and we have completely support equipment such as photographing equipment and sound recording equipment. It also can be seen from the screen that the primary and the secondary school students can watch the explanation of the STEAM teaching plan by National Pacific Museum's educator via the video and practice what they learn. After the practice, students show STEAM works in front of camera. All in all, through the distant education experiment, we can see that the museum can still implement STEAM education activity in the way of distant education. This is a case of transforming an educational activity that must be done in a physical way into a museum education activity that can be promoted online. Based on the National Pacific Museum's experience in promoting STEAM teaching plans in both physical and online way, we have summarized up several key facts for the transformation of museum education activity from the physical model to the online model. These facts affected the success online education activity. They are as follows. First, the primary and the secondary school and the museum have the video software, faster internet connection speed, good video quality, appropriate video operation field, and so on. Second, primary and the secondary school teachers have sufficient information skill, IT skill, and the museum educators are used to conduct activity online. Third, the museum's STEAM teaching material and the lesson plans must be adjusted to meet the needs of online teaching. Fourth, all kinds of supporting measurement must be designed first. For example, there should be a website for teachers and the students of primary and the secondary schools accepting distant education to download material, a mechanism for mailing and correcting, and a cloud platform for teacher and the museum educator to community, discuss, and exchanging documents. In short, in the future, National Pacific Museum's STEAM education activity will develop into a combination of online and offline model, and will be future complement and integrated. The above is brief introduction to National Pacific Museum's digital education in museum and how National Pacific Museum developed its physical education activity into online education activity under the influence of epidemic. If you have any idea or opinion about how to continue to promote museum education during the epidemic, please write to us. Thank you.
We will now take your questions. Okay, there is a question. In my experience, students determine effort based, that's for Dr. Siripon. Again, in my experience, students determine effort based on impact on their marks. Did you change the assessments of the courses, e.g., were there fewer assignments or were the assignments replaced? Did the mark weighing changed, i.e., if there was a separate mark for different assignments under the new circumstances, did the presentation count as more as opposed to the class's participation marks towards the final total? So this is for Dr. Siripon.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me. Right. I think for marking, I did change the requirements and sort of the system for marking. Yes, I added more weights on presentation, and I added more weights on the developments. Although development has always been very important for design education, but because of the pandemic, I wouldn't give as much attention to the sort of quality. For example, stitching, how neat or selvage. Um, I I reduced that the final result quality down and added more weights to other elements. So yeah, that's my answer.
Okay, thank you. Now we have a question for Ms. Alyssa Saisabet-Vary. Ms. Alyssa, your presentation indicates that the Queen Sirikit Museum has reached a wide audience through Facebook during COVID-19 compared to that of the previous year. How do you plan to keep up this audience?
In my opinion, we will continue to develop new contents on textiles, costumes, history, and textile conservation regarding to our museum's mission. For me, museum experience is still valuable, but in order to communicate and engage the public, we need to create online contents in parallel with the on-site exhibition to help virtually connect with our audiences.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have another question for Dr. Wutigrai. Have you noticed a difference in the quality of students' work between face-to-face and online learning?
Right. Yes, I did. I did notice that. I think when you do face-to-face, you have more time to sort of correct things that you think are not up to the quality that you expect. For example, how the student sort of hold the weft and beat the weft down, or how narrow the cloth could be when you pull the weft too tight on tapestry loom. These things you would correct them on the point. And when it's online, there is a limitation on what you can see. It's only what the students want to present. Sometimes they kind of hide or sort of avoid that kind of angle that you can see, or they don't know that this is the mistakes. So I think there are certain things that in terms of quality are sort of like not up to the standard that I would expect in normal classes. So yeah, there is a difference, and I think it tends to go into a kind of lower quality kind of ways, which is kind of expected. And when it's online class, you have to schedule the class, so that the time for interaction is very limited. Face to face, you do it in the studio. Student would come into the studio, and when you are there, you kind of walk into the room, and you would have more time, of the class to discuss things. So yeah, there is a difference, and I think the quality tends to be a little bit lower. That's my answer.
Okay, thank you. Now I have one more question for Ms. Alyssa. Do you have any plans for your upcoming exhibitions if the pandemic recurs?
I think we will proceed with our digital contents. Actually, in the past, in our previous exhibition, we did have digital contents, for example, animated video on how to wear traditional costumes or interactive panels in the gallery. So while we are preparing for our upcoming exhibition, on-site exhibition, we will also develop digital contents in educational and entertaining ways as well to make it more accessible online. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to thank all the participants, all those who joined the symposium, and the speakers. Next, there will be a 20-minute virtual tour of the Kampun Gallery Museum in Ubon Ratchathani with it has very rich textiles and different implements for weaving. A 20 minutes tour will start now.
To end our 3-day symposium, I would like to invite you to a brand new museum of textile in Thailand, the Kampun Museum. This new museum is located in Ubon Ratchathani province, about 1 hour flying or 6-hour drive from Bangkok. Ubon Ratchathani is a famous place for silk business, and there, the House of Kampun has been in silk business for 3 generations. Join us in this video is Mr. Michai, who inherits the family weaving business and has spent most of his life to develop the signature silk textile for the House of Kampun. Last year, he decided to open this museum for textile lovers to enjoy and learn about the weaving culture in the area and to showcase the brocade matmi silk that he designs himself. Let's get inside the museum together. Hi everyone, I'm now inside of Kampun Weaving Museum. Let me introduce you to Kun Michai Dasjariya, the owner and the creator of this museum. I'll call him Kun Thao, which is his nickname. อยากให้พี่เถาเล่าถึงที่มาที่ไปของพิพิธภัณฑ์แห่งนี้ครับแล้วก็ในนี้มีประกอบไปด้วยความรู้หรือว่าเรื่องราวเกี่ยวกับการทอผ้าอะไรบ้างครับ
บ้านคำปุนแห่งนี้นะครับก็ถือได้ว่าเนื่องจากเราได้เปิดบ้านคำปุนเพื่อที่จะเป็นการเผยแพร่นะครับภูมิปัญญาในการทอผ้าเป็นเวลายาวนานกว่า22 ปีนะครับบ้านคำปุนเองเป็นบ้านที่เราใช้เป็นที่อยู่อาศัยนะครับแล้วก็เป็นโรงงานทอผ้าของครอบครัวด้วยที่สำคัญคือบ้านคำปุนมีสถาปัตยกรรมที่เป็นท้องถิ่นที่โดดเด่นนะครับทำให้มีผู้สนใจทั้งทางด้านสถาปัตยกรรมแล้วก็ทางด้านของภูมิปัญญาทางด้านทอผ้าของเรานะครับเมื่อไม่นานมานี้ก็เลยคิดว่าถ้าหากว่าพวกเราไม่อยู่กันแล้วเราจะมีการสืบสานต่อว่าทำในการทำผ้าของได้ยังไงนะครับเนื่องจากว่าการที่เราได้ทำงานมาตลอดตั้งแต่คุณยายนะครับคุณแม่กำปุนสีใสคุณแม่ของผมและท่านก็ได้รับเกียรติให้เป็นศิลปินชาติถือว่าท่านมีภูมิปัญญาที่น่าสนใจควรแก่การสืบสานไว้ให้กับคนรุ่นหลังครับสำหรับตัวผมเองก็ได้ชื่อว่าเป็นผู้ที่ให้ความรู้เป็นวิทยากรนะครับในโอกาสต่างๆมาเป็นเวลานานก็ถือได้ว่างานสร้างสรรค์ที่เราได้ทำในอย่างนี้ก็เป็นงานที่ค่อนข้างมีการพัฒนาใหม่ในรูปลักษณ์ที่โดดเด่นแตกต่างจากผ้าที่เราเคยมีในอดีตครับเพราะฉะนั้นก็เลยมีความคิดจะทำพิพิธภัณฑ์คำปุนแห่งนี้ขึ้นมาครับแล้วก็เนื่องจากว่าพิพิธภัณฑ์แห่งใดก็ตามในประเทศไทยเป็นเรื่องที่จะสามารถรักษาให้ยั่งยืนได้โดยการที่ดำรงคงอยู่นะครับให้พิพิธภัณฑ์นี้ดูแลตัวเองได้ตลอดรอดฝั่งเพราะฉะนั้นพิพิธภัณฑ์แห่งนี้ก็เหมือนพิพิธภัณฑ์ต่างๆทั่วโลกในปัจจุบันที่เราจำเป็นต้องมีคาเฟ่นะครับเป็นห้องรับแขกเป็นการบริการให้กับผู้ที่เข้าเยี่ยมชมได้ใช้เวลานะครับเพลิดเพลินกับเครื่องดื่มแล้วก็ของว่างอาหารน้อยนอกจากนี้ก็ยังมีของที่ระลึกซึ่งเราได้จัดทำขึ้นเป็นพิเศษนะครับเช่นร่มหมวกอะไรต่างๆที่สามารถที่จะให้นักท่องเที่ยวได้นำติดตัวไปเป็นของที่ระลึกนะครับพิพิธภัณฑ์แห่งนี้ยังมีลักษณะสำคัญก็คืออย่างเช่นอาคารที่เรากำลังนั่งอยู่นี้ก็เรียกว่าหอพระธาตุพิพิธภัณฑ์นะครับก็ตั้งใจที่จะสร้างขึ้นเพื่อประดิษฐานพระบรมสารีริกธาตุนะครับเป็นพิพิธภัณฑ์ทอผ้าซึ่งเป็นพิพิธภัณฑ์ผ้าซึ่งเราได้สร้างศรัทธาให้ยิ่งขึ้นทางด้านพุทธศาสนาเรียกได้ว่าที่นี่เองเป็นที่แสดงธรรมเป็นที่ได้สามารถรับใช้ครูบาอาจารย์ได้ฟังธรรมะเป็นบางโอกาสได้สามารถที่จะมีคอร์สปฏิบัติธรรมง่ายๆได้ครับเพราะฉะนั้นสถานที่แห่งนี้ก็ต้องการให้ทราบว่าอุบลเรามีประวัติศาสตร์ความเป็นมาที่ยาวนานมีนกหัสดิลิงซึ่งเป็นความหมายถึงเจ้าครองนครของอุบลซึ่งท่านก็คงจะได้ทราบในโอกาสต่อไปว่าทำไมนกหัสดิลิงนี้ถึงได้เป็น ประติมากรรมที่สำคัญสถานที่แห่งนี้ซึ่งเทินบุษบกนะครับเป็นศาลพระบรมสารีริกธาตุครับสำหรับพิพิธภัณฑ์คำพูนแห่งนี้ก็ได้รวบรวมภูมิปัญญาทั้งหมดที่เราได้สั่งสมมาตั้งแต่รุ่นก่อนนะครับตั้งแต่คุณยายมีเครื่องมือทอผ้าที่ได้รับสืบทอดมาตั้งแต่สมัยก่อนคุณยายเรียกว่าเป็นปีชั่วคนแล้วในปัจจุบันนะครับแต่ผ้าของเราได้มีการเปลี่ยนแปลงไปตามช่วงสมัยนะครับเช่นสมัยคุณทวดเองก็คงไม่ได้ทำผ้าเหมือนคุณยายทั้ง100%คุณแม่เองคุณแม่คำพูนเองก็ไม่ได้ทำผ้าเหมือนยายทั้งหมดถ้าผมเองถึงแม้ว่าจะทำงานด้านอนุรักษ์นะครับเราพยายามที่จะเก็บรักษารูปแบบที่เป็นของท้องถิ่นเป็นของอุบลอย่างยิ่งนะครับเป็นระดับของภาคอีสานทั้งหลายแต่ยังก็ตามเราก็มีการได้พัฒนานะครับเป็นเวลาหลาย10 ปีมานี้เพื่อจะให้ผ้าของเราได้รับใช้สังคมรุ่นใหม่แล้วก็สามารถเป็นที่ยอมรับของคนในปัจจุบันนะครับแล้วก็พยายามที่จะสร้างสรรค์ผ้าซึ่งเป็นภูมิปัญญาที่เราได้จัดแสดงไว้ในครั้งแห่งนี้ให้เห็นว่าสิ่งที่เราได้ทำในปัจจุบันนี้นะครับไม่ว่าจะเป็นการประดิษฐ์ลวดลายต่างๆมีการนำเอาเทคนิคต่างๆที่ทอได้ยากมารวมไว้เป็นชิ้นใดชิ้นหนึ่งการสร้างนวัตกรรมใหม่ให้กับวงการทอผ้านะครับเช่นผมได้นำเอาเทคนิคการทำเกาะล้วงนะครับซึ่งเราได้เห็นรูปแบบของจีนเอาผสมกับงานรัดหมี่ของไทยเราแล้วก็ได้นำการรูปปัดของเผ่ากระตูนะครับก็เป็นชนกลุ่มน้อยตั้งแต่ในเวียดนามกลางเวียดนามลาวนะครับมาในผ้ามัดหมี่ของเราได้นำเอาเทคนิคจบซึ่งไม่เคยจบทับบนมัดหมี่มาก่อนนะครับมันใช้เป็นครั้งแรกโดยผมคิดว่าต้องการนำเอาลักษณะเอกลักษณ์ของหัวสิ้นจบดาวของคนมาเป็นสัญลักษณ์มาเป็นอัตลักษณ์ให้เห็นว่าผ้าชิ้นนี้ทอจากจังหวัดอุบลถึงแม้ว่าในปัจจุบันนี้นะครับได้มีช่างทอผ้าด้านหลายท้องที่นำเอาเทคนิคการจบทับบนมัดหมี่ไปใช้มากแล้วแต่ก็เป็นเรื่องที่น่ายินดีว่าวงการทอผ้าของเราได้มีการพัฒนาต่อไปนะครับส่วนจุดเด่นนะครับของพิพิธภัณฑ์แห่งนี้ก็คือเครื่องมือทอผ้านะครับนับตั้งแต่ชิ้นสำคัญตั้งแต่คุณยายได้รับมาจากอีกท่านหนึ่งทอดมาเป็นเวลายาวนานนะครับถึง4 ชั่วคนนี้เป็นอย่างน้อยก็ถือได้ว่าเป็นชิ้นสำคัญแล้วท่านยังได้มีงานของท่านที่ท่านได้ให้ช่างไม้ทำก็คือในที่สามารถปั่นตีเกลียวปรับปรุงเส้นไหมได้ทีเดียวคราวเดียวกัน5 เส้นเรียกว่าหลา5 ในอันนี้ก็เป็นชิ้นพิเศษที่เราถือได้ว่าไม่ใช่ทางด้านความงามเท่านั้นที่มีการฉลุไม้ยังมีการปรับปรุงทางเทคโนโลยีด้านเดิมให้ใช้เครื่องมือไม้นี้ได้มีผลดียิ่งขึ้นนะครับเพราะฉะนั้นนอกจากนี้ก็ยังมีงานไม้แกะสลักต่างๆซึ่งเป็นเครื่องมือทอผ้าเห็นได้ว่าครับนอกจากจังหวัดอุบลแล้วก็มีแค่จังหวัดสุรินทร์ซึ่งมีรูปแบบในการแกะสลักเครื่องมือทอผ้าที่มีลวดลายน้อยกว่าแล้วก็ไม่ได้แกะเป็นเสียงหน้าหรือหัวหน้าของที่อุบลนะครับอุบลนี้ก็เป็นเรียกว่าเป็นแหล่งที่รวมวัฒนธรรมนะครับในการทอผ้าเรามีทั้งประวัติศาสตร์ทั้งด้านภูมิศาสตร์ที่เราชิดกับพรมแดนของทั้งลาวทั้งเขมรนะครับการที่เราเรียกเครื่องมือของเราบางอย่างใช้ชื่อเดียวกันทั้งลาวทั้งเขมรเช่นกวักแล้วก็อักนะครับแล้วก็ยังมีการนำเอารูปแบบเทคนิคต่างๆทั้งที่ในอดีตแล้วก็ผมได้นำเอาเทคนิคของประเทศเพื่อนบ้านเหล่านี้มาพัฒนาการทอผ้าของเราให้มีคุณภาพดีขึ้นอันนี้ก็เรียกว่าเกิดจากเครื่องมือเหล่านี้เป็นเครื่องมือทอผ้าที่ได้จัดแสดงในที่นี้รวมทั้งได้มีการใช้งานจริงแม้ว่าเครื่องมือชิ้นนั้นจะอายุเป็น100 ปีแล้วก็ตามแต่ได้เห็นได้ว่าคนไทยเรามีความเพียรมีความอุตสาหะแล้วก็มีความสามารถที่จะนำเอาเครื่องมือแค่เป็นไม้แล้วก็ไม้ไผ่เท่านั้นมาสร้างสรรค์งานที่มหัศจรรย์ขึ้นอย่างที่ได้เห็นในงานของผ้าทอไทยทุกวันนี้นะครับ
So besides being a living museum of the weaving or textile weaving in Thailand, this very important museum is also house a very important collection of the equipment in traditional weaving in the northeastern region of Thailand and in Ubon Ratchathani. We will take a look closer after this break. Thank you very much.
รงนี้เลยครับอันนี้มีความสำคัญยังไงครับ
ก็จะเห็นได้ว่างานชิ้นนี้เป็นของพิเศษนะอาจารย์ว่าถ้าเดี๋ยวเก็บสะสมมาชิ้นอื่นก็ไม่เคยมีงานลายรดน้ำแล้วก็มีการแกะสลักลงรักปิดทองแล้วก็ลงสีชาติด้วยอันนี้ก็ส่งอิทธิพลได้เห็นว่ามีอุบลมีแลคเกอร์แวร์เหมือนกันแล้วก็มักจะนิยมใช้สีดำแดงเพราะงานชิ้นนี้เนี่ยคุณยายได้รับมาอีกทอดหนึ่งก็ถือได้ว่าเป็นสีช่วงคนช่วยยุคน
ก็ถือว่าเป็นเครื่องมือทอผ้าแบบของดั้งเดิม
ของคนแล้วก็มีความประณีตงดงามมากนะครับซึ่งจะเห็นได้ว่าเมื่อก่อนเนี่ยอาจจะมีการแบ่งการใช้สอยเครื่องมือต่างๆเนี่ยแล้วแต่ฐานะของบุคคลนะครับจะมีของที่งานตั้งแต่ประณีตจนถึงคล้ายๆเครื่องมือกสิกรรมได้ซ้ำไป
ที่ชาวบ้านทั่วไป
ใช่ครับ
ที่ในภาพที่เห็นนั่นคือ
ชิ้นเดียวกัน
แล้วบุคคลที่อยู่ในภาพ
ก็คือคุณยายคุณแม่ของคุณสีใส
ครับก็คือเป็นคุณยายของ
ท่านถือได้ว่าเป็นนอกจากคุณยายทวดแล้วก็ท่านเป็นคนที่จริงจังในเรื่องการถ่ายทอดภูมิปัญญาในเรื่องความรู้ด้านทอผ้าให้เรา
ครับนี่เรามาเห็นประวัติศาสตร์และความเป็นผ้ากาบบัวซึ่งเป็นผ้าอัตลักษณ์ของจังหวัดอุบลมันเริ่มยังไงครับ
ก็เดิมนี่ก็เริ่มคิดว่าเดิมเราทำมัดหมี่นะครับซึ่งเรียบง่ายการที่จะทำผ้าให้ดูสมัยใหม่เนี้ยก็มีเราเองมีหลักคิดง่ายๆว่าทำลายนั้นที่เคยมีดั้งเดิมมาให้เล็กลงหรือไม่ก็ทำให้มันใหญ่ขึ้นอันนี้ก็ถือว่าทำให้มันแปลกตาไป
ปรับเรื่องสีด้วย
ปรับเรื่องสีโทนสีก็เป็นสีที่ยอมรับได้ในปัจจุบัน
สบายตา
แล้วก็ไม่ดูเป็นทางการเกินไปนะครับอันนี้ก็เป็นการใช้มัดหมี่ที่โดยการจะมีเส้นยืนนี่ย้อมเป็นเหมือนมัดย้อมไว้แล้วนะครับจะเห็นมี texture เกิดขึ้นโดยการนำเส้นนูนมาสอดแต่ว่าชั้นหลังที่เป็นผ้ากาบบัวเนี่ยสำหรับผืนนี้ก็คือเป็นไหมที่ไม่พอที่จะทอได้อีกผืนหนึ่งนะครับ
ก็คือเป็นเส้นพุ่งที่เหลือจากการทอ
เราก็เอาอันอื่นที่เหลืออีกก็คือเส้นนูนนี่จากไหมที่เหลือหางกระรอกจากไหมสองสีที่มันเหลือไม่เยอะก็มาหางกระรอกกันแล้วก็มาทอก็ทำให้ผ้าที่เป็นของเหลือนี่สามารถนำมาใช้งานได้นะครับอันนี้เรียกได้ว่าเป็นการนำเอาของเหลือใช้ทีนี้ทำไมเราต้องมีขีดเพราะว่าคนเราเนี่ยได้มีชื่อเสียงทางเรื่องผ้ายกมาก่อนงานโบรเกตเนี่ยควรจะอยากจะให้ช่างเรียนรู้โดยการที่สัมผัสการมีไม้ดาบสอดแล้วก็ยกนะครับมีขีดถึงแม้ว่าจะเป็นเส้นเดียวจะเป็นการสร้างความคุ้นเคยก็เรียนรู้การทอผ้ายกหรือขีดบนมัดหมี่นี่ก็เป็นผ้ากาบบัวครับที่เราออกแบบให้มีลักษณะพิเศษที่นำเอาเทคนิคเดิมที่เรามีอยู่แล้วครับมารวมกันให้อยู่ในผืนเดียวกันนะครับก็คือเส้นยืนเนี่ยกำหนดไว้เลยว่าอาจจะต้องมีสีที่เป็นริ้วอย่างนี้อย่างน้อย2 สีขึ้นไปจะมีกี่สีก็ได้ครับส่วนทางด้านพุ่งนี้ก็จะมี3 เทคนิคนะครับก็คือมัดหมี่คือที่ท่านเห็นเป็นลายอย่างนี้ฮะที่เกิดจากการมัดระยองเนี่ยเรียกว่าเป็นมัดหมี่จะเป็นลายอะไรก็ได้จะขอมีเทคนิคนี้นะครับแล้วก็จะมีทีเส้นเล็กๆที่ทำให้เกิดแสงยิบนี่ก็คือหางกระรอกนะหรือเป็นทวิสต์ยอนเนี่ยก็จะทำให้นำเอาภูมิปัญญาเดิมที่เรามีอยู่แล้วซึ่งเราใช้ทอผ้าสโรงทอผ้าหางกระรอกทอผ้าสร้อยปลาไหลทอผ้าสิ้นไหมควบข้ออื่นนะก็อยากให้ภูมิปัญญาในการที่เราเอาไหมของเส้นมาตีเกลียวเนี่ยยังคงอยู่ข้างบนเพราะว่าอุบลเป็นเมืองที่มีชื่อในเรื่องทำผ้ายกมาก่อนนะครับไปทั้งสมัยที่พระพันปีเสด็จที่นี่นะครับก็ถือได้ว่าชาวอุบลก็ได้ทอผ้ายกถวายแล้วก่อนหน้านี้ในสมัยรัชกาลที่5นะครับก็ได้มีหลายพระหาเขียนไว้ว่าผ้าเย็บแบบลาวนี่ทอดีมากชิงไหมสู้ไม่ได้เลยอันนี้ก็หมายถึงผ้าที่อุบลที่เป็นผ้ายกทองนะครับซึ่งผ้าเย็บแบบนี้เราไม่ทราบว่าหน้าตาเนี่ยจะดอกยังไงเป็นลายอะไรเพียงแต่เราก็ทราบประมาณได้ว่าถ้าผ้าเย็บแบบก็คือเห็นเส้นโลหะมากกว่าเนื้อไหมนะฮะอันนี้ก็เป็นเรื่องที่เราพอที่จะจินตนาการได้แต่ว่าในตอนที่เราทำออกแบบผ้ากาบบัวเนี่ยผมก็ได้ออกแบบผ้ากาบบัวไว้ถึง3 ชนิดอันที่1คือผ้ากาบบัวอย่างนี้เพื่อที่เราจะรักษาภูมิปัญญาในการทอผ้าให้อยู่ในช่างคนเดียวกันคนที่ไม่เก่งในเรื่องมัดหมี่ก็ทดลองทอมัดหมี่ในการที่จะวัดนะฮะมัดเส้นมัดหมี่นี้ให้ตรงกัน ทุกสีเส้นหรือทุกของเส้นนี่เป็นเรื่องที่ต้องใช้ความชำนาญให้เขารู้วิธีที่จะทำหางกระรอกให้เขารู้วิธีที่จะใช้ไม้ดาบแล้วก็สอดไม้ขีดหรือว่าสร้างลวดลายโดยการขีดเนี่ย
เท่ากับว่า1คนทอเนี่ย
จะต้องทำได้ทุกอย่าง
ทุกเทคนิค
ใช่ครับเพราะตอนในปี 43นี่ในจังหวัดอุบลเราเนี่ยไม่มีกลุ่มทอผ้าที่สร้างรายได้เลี้ยงชุมชนโดยอาชีพทอผ้าเลยแล้วก็นอกจากนี้นะครับฝีมือในการทอผ้าอุปกรณ์ในการทอผ้าในหมู่บ้านกี่ทอผ้าใต้ถุนบ้านหายไปเกือบหมดแล้วนะครับเรียกว่าเป็นการฟื้นฟูที่สำคัญเพราะว่าในที่สุดใช้เวลาถึง20 ปีทำให้เราสร้างชุมชนที่ทอผ้าแล้วก็สามารถสร้างรายได้ชุมชนได้จนกระทั่งผ้ากับบัวเราได้ขึ้นทะเบียนเป็นมรดกภูมิปัญญาเท่านั้นของชาติของสมธรรมถือได้ว่าชุมชนนี้ได้ใช้ประโยชน์แม้กระทั่งการสร้างรายได้สร้างอาชีพแล้วก็ที่สำคัญมากก็คือได้สร้างการรักษาภูมิปัญญาของท้องถิ่นให้สืบต่อไปครับ
ตอนนี้เรามาถึงผ้าที่มีความสำคัญมากก็คือผ้าที่พี่เฒ่าเอาเทคนิคโบราณมารวมกันแล้วก็กลายเป็นงานสร้างสรรค์ใหม่ที่ไม่เคยมีมาก่อนในภาคอีสานอย่างเงี้ยอยากให้เล่าให้ฟังว่าไอ้ผ้าผืนนี้มันมีที่มาที่ไปยังไงครับ
ลายจบดาวนี้ครับพบแพร่หลายมากถ้าในเมืองเล็กๆก็จะมีแค่ยกด้วยสีเหลืองเพื่อที่จะแทนค่าของสีทองแล้วก็สีขาวแทนค่าไหมเงินผมก็ได้นำเอามาออกแบบเป็นผ้ากาบบัวนะฮะจบดาวซึ่งอันนี้ก็เป็นครั้งแรก
ก็พูดง่ายๆคือเอาลายที่อยู่บนหัวสิ้นนี่แหละ
มาทำให้กระจาย
ทั่วทั้งผืน
ใช่ครับเพื่อที่จะให้เห็นว่าลักษณะของลายหัวจกดาวเนี่ยเป็นส่วนหนึ่งของเอกลักษณ์ของผ้าสิ้นอุบลหรือผ้าอุบลที่เราควรจะรักษาไว้
เป็นการนำเอาภูมิปัญญาโบราณมาปรับประยุกต์ใช้แล้วก็เกิดเป็นงานสร้างสรรค์ใหม่ขึ้นมา
เขาเรียกว่ามีกลุ่มแรกๆที่สามารถทำผ้ากับบัวจกดาวได้ในช่วงปี 43 เนี่ย 2-3 หมู่บ้านแล้วก็ปัจจุบันนี้ก็สามารถทอได้หลายกลุ่มทอผ้า
ซึ่งจริงๆมันก็เป็นเทคนิคที่เขาทำได้อยู่แล้วเพราะเขาทำหัวสิ้นมาก่อน
แต่ว่ายากตรงที่ว่าถ้าทำทั้งผืนเลยเนี่ยเป็นเรื่องที่มีการทำงานมากกว่านะครับแล้วก็ทำไมต้องมีการออกแบบลายสิ้นจกดาวนี้เพราะผมคิดว่าผ้ากับบัวจกดาวนี่แหละฮะที่จะมาเพิ่มความประณีตของผ้านุ่งคือคิดว่าถ้าในงานที่ต้องการความเป็นทางการมากขึ้นต้องการความหรูหรามากขึ้นผ้าสิ้นกับบัวจกดาวนี่สามารถตอบโจทย์ได้นะครับมีการเพิ่มลวดลายต่างๆนะครับ
เพราะฉะนั้นสิ้นนี้จริงๆเราก็คือเป็นสิ้นทิวแบบโบราณ
ใช่ครับแต่ว่าเอาจกดาวมา
แทรกเข้า
ไปทั่วทั้งผืนนะครับ
ซึ่งจกดาวในที่นี้มีทั้งสิ้นโลหะ
ด้วยแล้วก็สิ้นโลหะด้วยครับแล้วบางส่วนที่เราต้องการเน้นอย่างเช่นตรงตีนสิ้นเราอาจจะใช้โลหะจะเห็นว่าตรงตีนสิ้นเลยเนี่ยเราขั้นด้วยโลหะเท่านี้เองอันนี้ก็เป็นของที่เกิดขึ้นใหม่พี่เองก็คิดว่าสมัยโบราณไม่เคยมีเลยแล้วก็มั่นใจว่าเราเป็นคนแรกที่นำเอาเทคนิคของการจกลงมาทับบนมัดหมี่นะครับ
เพราะฉะนั้นในผืนนี้เนี่ยก็จะใช้มัดหมี่อย่างที่เห็นลายเบอร์อยู่เป็นแบ็คกราวด์เนี่ยนะครับแล้วก็มีเส้นมัดไหมหรือเส้นทวิสต์ยาง2 สีแทรกเข้าไปแล้วก็มีขีดแทรกเข้าไปตลอดแล้วก็มีจกโลหะเพิ่มความหรูหราเข้าไปอีกนะครับทีนี้นอกจากนี้แล้วผมเห็นความต่างก็คือสิ้นโบราณจริงๆสีมันจะออกเป็นโทนเข้มๆหมดแต่อันนี้ก็เป็นสีใหม่เป็นนวัตกรรมเรื่องสีอีกเหมือนกัน
เรื่องสีมาทั้งผืนนี้ครับก็จะเห็นว่าเรายังดูไม่ค่อยรู้สึกว่าต่างมากเนื่องจากว่าสีม่วงนี้จะมีความกลมกลืนนะครับเป็นผ้าค่านิยมแบบโบราณอยู่นิดหนึ่งแต่ว่าม่วงนี้ก็เริ่มอ่อนลงแล้วเพราะสิ้นทิวเดิมของบนนี้ไม่เคยมีสีนี้เลยนะครับจะเป็นสีกรมท่าหรือดำกับแดงเท่านั้นจะมีแค่แดงเป็นหลักแล้วก็จะสลับด้วยน้ำตาลด้วยมะขามหรือสีกรมท่าหรือสีดำนะแม้กระทั่งการนำเอามัดหมี่
เส้นยืน
เส้นยืนมาแทรกอันนี้ก็เป็นความคิดที่เมื่อ20 ปีที่แล้วนะครับอยากจะให้ผ้าของบนเนี่ยมีเทคนิคที่หลากหลายนะฮะเพื่อที่จะสร้างกำลังใจให้กับช่างทอผ้าในอุบลเนี่ยได้มีการพัฒนาผ้าของตัวเองให้มากขึ้น
เดี๋ยวเราไปดูที่กี่ทอผ้าซึ่งกำลังทอผ้าชนิดนี้อยู่ครับนี่ก็เป็นช่างทอของบ้านคำปุณนะครับซึ่งตอนนี้กำลังทอผ้าสิ้นซึ่งมีเทคนิคทั้งมัดมีการแทรกเส้นขีดแล้วก็มีการแทรกจก ฮะโลหะเป็นจกดาวก็คือเอาจากหัวสิ้นมาประกอบเชิงสิ้นกับตัวสิ้นเนี่ยทอเป็นชิ้นเดียวกันไม่ต้องมีการต่อ
ไม่ต้องต่อเหมือนของโบราณ
โบราณครับ
To sum up today's virtual symposium, again, we talked about new ways of teaching and learning and long distance, and compared to see how effective the new ways are as compared to old ways. And this is still to be found because it's all new. There are no results yet, and we are all in the process of learning and comparing. And let us hope that good results come out of a new situation, as was proven by some of the speakers, that people become creative under difficult situation. So once again, I thank you for your participation, and I'd like to introduce the Queen Sirikit Museum of Textile Director, Mrs. Pia Vara.
สวัสดีค่ะ On behalf of the Queen Sirikit Museum of Textiles and the Executive Committee of the Support Foundation, we are honored to cooperate with the Faculty of Fine and Applied Art, Thammasat University, to host our first international online conference, Inside Out, Outside In Cross-Cultural Exchanges in Textiles and Dress and the New Normal After COVID-19, from December 1st to December 3rd, 2020. I would like to thank our moderators, all speakers, and Kampun Museum for sharing their wisdom and experience of researching and working during the pandemic. I would also like to thank our participants who joined the conference from all over the world. I strongly hope that this program will motivate and inspire everyone, especially museum or gallery professionals, to achieve success at work. Thank you.